Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a topic that is as painful as it is essential: how narcissistic women manipulate men, especially the kind-hearted, loyal men who often don't see it coming. If you've ever found yourself confused in a relationship, walking on eggshells, second-guessing your worth, or feeling like you're the one always apologizing, this video is for you. Because the truth is, some women, especially those with covert narcissistic traits, are masters of emotional disguise. They don't yell, they don't storm out, but they erode your confidence slowly through guilt, promises, and manipulation wrapped in affection. This isn't about assigning blame or labeling every difficult woman a narcissist. It's about empowerment through understanding. Narcissistic personality disorder is real and complex, but it never excuses mistreatment. And more importantly, you are never responsible for tolerating or fixing someone else's destructive behavior. In this video, we'll unpack the subtle phases of narcissistic manipulation, from how she draws you in with charm and intensity, to how she traps you with guilt, confusion, and emotional control. We'll also explain why so many good people, especially the empathic, dependable, deeply loving ones, stay far longer than they should. So, whether you're trying to make sense of a past relationship, questioning a current one, or simply want to understand the emotional dynamics at play better, stay with us until the end. Your emotional clarity and peace of mind are worth far more than any toxic attachment. Let's begin. Number 1. Who the female covert narcissist targets. Not every man falls into her web, but the ones who do often carry traits that make them quietly irresistible to a covert narcissist. She doesn't chase chaos in the beginning. Instead, she scans for structure, strength that looks like gentleness, and stability that feels like home. That's why she's drawn to two very different types of partners: those who mirror her narcissism and those who represent its opposite. When she meets someone like herself, the dynamic becomes a silent duel, two egos searching for dominance. But when she finds someone from the second group, that's when her manipulation truly thrives. She looks for the kind of man many women dream of, not flashy or arrogant, but dependable, deeply feeling and guided by purpose. In her eyes, this man becomes the perfect stage for her emotional performance. His strength doesn't intimidate her, it excites her, because she knows strength like his can be redirected. The Fio type is her favorite target. He is a protector by instinct, the man who shields others even when it costs him. He doesn't just want to keep others safe, he feels responsible for their peace. As a helper, he doesn't view giving as a sacrifice. He gives because it aligns with who he is, and because helping fulfills him on a deeper level. His integrity is unwavering. He says what he means and means what he says. Promises are not empty gestures to him, they're sacred. And above all, he is loving, not in fleeting bursts, but with consistency, affection, and the emotional safety many only dream of. To most, this man is a pillar. To her, he's an opportunity. Because these qualities, while admirable, are precisely what a covert narcissist needs to maintain her facade. She feeds off devotion and seeks validation wrapped in concern. And the Phil man offers both in abundance, not because he's naive, but because he believes in people. He sees potential in everyone. And when she begins to show cracks, when her insecurities surface, or her stories seem just a little too perfect, he doesn't walk away. He leans in, he asks questions, he tries to understand. And that's when she knows she's found someone she can mold. What makes this dynamic dangerous isn't the man's weakness, but the misdirection of his strength. His empathy, loyalty, and ability to love without needing control are not flaws, but in the wrong hands they become vulnerabilities. She will test his boundaries not by breaking them outright, but by slowly asking for more than she gives. More understanding, more time, more patience. And he will give it, not because he's blind, but because he thinks love is supposed to be patient. But there's a cost to loving someone who sees your care as a tool, not a treasure. Over time, he may begin to question himself. He may feel exhausted by the emotional labor, confused by the contradictions of her words and actions. Still, he stays because he believes that consistency heals chaos. What he doesn't realize, at least not right away, is that she isn't healing, she's feeding. This is not to say that the fill type is doomed. Recognizing this pattern is the first step to breaking free of it. Strength misused can become weakness, but strength reclaimed becomes clarity. And once he sees that not everyone who needs love deserves it, he draws lines. He learns that empathy without discernment becomes self-sacrifice, that integrity without boundaries becomes erosion, and that love offered to the wrong person is not romantic, it's dangerous. Understanding who she targets isn't about fear, it's about awareness. Because the moment a man sees that his most outstanding qualities are not flaws, but simply in need of protection, he stops being a target and starts becoming someone she can no longer control. Number 2, the luring and idealization phase. She doesn't walk into your life quietly. She arrives like a revelation, vivid, magnetic, and impossible to ignore. Her presence answers a silent question you didn't know you were asking. She seems to read you with unspoken ease, laugh at your jokes without delay, and lean in just enough to make you feel like the center of her world. In the beginning it feels effortless, too good to doubt, too complete to question. From the first few conversations, she's emotionally open in ways that feel disarming. She shares stories of pain and resilience, complicated pasts, and the strength she found within. Her vulnerability seems raw and rare. She paints herself as misunderstood by everyone else, until you're the exception. With you, she finally feels safe, seen, understood. It's intoxicating to be chosen in that way. To feel like the one man who gets her when the rest of the world has failed. Then comes the connection, fast and immersive. She mirrors your values, finishes sentences, and responds with sharp empathy that cuts through your defenses. The bond feels immediate and profound. You're not just falling for her. You're beginning to believe you were meant to meet. That somehow fate or timing or the universe itself brought her to you. And beneath that emotional closeness, there's something more primal. She shows affection with intensity, not in words alone, but in ways that bind you deeper. Affection becomes a reinforcement tool, drawing you closer through warmth and closeness. You interpret it as chemistry, but it's something else, strategy. Every moment is crafted to deepen the illusion of connection and dependence. Her aim isn't just to be loved, it's needed. She subtly frames herself as fragile yet brave, powerful yet wounded. And without realizing it, you begin stepping into the role she's designed for you. Protector, savior, the one who makes her feel whole again. You feel needed in a way that flatters your ego and touches your heart. She leans on you not just for comfort, but for rescue. It feels noble, romantic, even heroic. But there's a hidden current beneath the surface. She isn't just bonding, she's learning. Every story you share, every insecurity you whisper, every fear you reveal in those late-night talks becomes part of her internal map, You think you're building trust. She's collecting ammunition. The more emotionally open you become, the more exposed you are. And later, when the image begins to crack and the warmth turns cold, you'll wonder how she knows exactly where to strike. Because she was listening, not to love, but to power. She was watching, not to connect, but to control. The perfect woman you thought you met wasn't a reflection of your desires. She was a projection of them, carefully mirrored back to you. This isn't about bitterness or fear, it's about clarity. The early phase of intensity is not always love. Sometimes it's performance. Authentic connection takes time. Illusions are built fast. When something feels too perfectly tailored to your needs, it may not be genuine, it may be calculated. Not every woman plays this role, but when she does, the cost isn't just heartbreak. It's the disorientation of realizing the bond you felt so deeply may have been manufactured. And that's when the most brutal truth emerges. It wasn't love, it was the strategy. You weren't chosen because of who you are, you were profiled because of what you need. Number 3. The hook. Emotional manipulation through promises and guilt. Sometimes what looks like vulnerability is not a window into her pain, but a carefully crafted tool of control. It begins subtly. She pulls away emotionally without warning. You feel the chill first in her silence, then in her tone. When you ask what's wrong, she may mention something you said or did, something so small it surprises you. Yet she delivers it with enough emotional weight that you feel responsible. Maybe she brings up a past hurt or says you reminded her of someone who once betrayed her trust. The heavy and solemn emotional tone makes you want to fix everything. Your natural response as a man of integrity is to step up. You reassure her. You clarify your intentions. You apologize, even when you're unsure what exactly you did wrong. You promise you'll be better, more careful, more present. You think you're bringing the relationship closer through these moments of care, but you don't see the hook being set. Each promise you make becomes a thread, and she tightens the emotional bond with each thread, not to bring you closer in love, but to bind you in obligation. This tactic plays on your sense of honor. The more you care, the more likely you are to try harder. She knows this, so she continues creating situations that trigger your guilt. She doesn't yell or blame directly. Instead, she withdraws. She says things like, "I need space," or "I don't know if I can do this anymore." And with every withdrawal comes your instinct to chase, to prove that you're safe and sound and committed. You double down. You offer more emotional labor, more patience, and more reassurance. But what feels like repair is erosion. You're no longer responding from desire but from duty. And when love turns into a series of performances to avoid hurting her, you're no longer in a relationship based on mutual connection. You're locked in a dynamic of guilt and appeasement. She becomes the gatekeeper of peace, and you constantly try to earn it. What's dangerous is how invisible this trap can be. From the outside, it may seem like you're the strong and supportive partner, but inside you're navigating a minefield of her sensitivities, real or exaggerated. You walk more carefully, you speak more cautiously, you begin to doubt yourself, and she rarely has to say much. Her silence, disappointment, and vague sadness are enough to keep you working overtime to maintain the relationship. It's important to recognize this pattern for what it is, not genuine emotional openness, but manipulation cloaked in fragility. Real vulnerability invites closeness, mutual understanding, and shared growth. Emotional manipulation exploits empathy and turns love into unpaid emotional debts. If you feel like you're constantly explaining, always promising, the one easing her pain while your own goes unnoticed, it's time to pause. A relationship should never feel like a test. You're always on the edge of failing. The deeper your integrity, the more vulnerable you are to this emotional hook, and that's the hardest part. Because the very qualities that make you a good man, compassion, responsibility, and loyalty, are the ones being used to keep you stuck. To free yourself, you must recognize that love doesn't demand proof. Connection doesn't require you to fix her wounds at your own expense. And no matter how gentle the manipulation feels, guilt should never be the glue that holds two people together. Number 4. The game begins. The push-pull abuse cycle. It begins innocently enough. She makes you feel seen in a way no one else has. There's warmth in her eyes, consistency in her attention, and a rhythm in her words that draws you closer. You start letting your guard down, trusting what seems to be mutual interest, but then, almost imperceptibly, the ground begins to shift. What once felt like certainty turns into confusion. Praise becomes criticism. Curiosity turns into control. One day she's affectionate, the next she's distant. You find yourself scanning her messages for meaning, questioning what you did wrong, replaying conversations like puzzles with no solution. This is the push-pull cycle. Once caught, logic begins to unravel. You start thinking, maybe it's your fault. Perhaps you misunderstood her tone. Maybe she's just stressed. You want to return to how things used to be when her attention felt like a spotlight. And so you try harder, you give more, you over-explain, you apologize for things you didn't do. Slowly your center of gravity shifts, and you start orbiting around her emotional weather. When she pulls away, you chase. When she returns, you feel relief instead of joy. You mistake the end of tension for intimacy. That's how trauma bonding begins. These cycles are not accidental. The subtle devaluation is deliberate, even if unconscious. She compares you to other men in passing, or reminds you how much better her ex was at something. She questions your memory, your motives, or your emotions. Gaslighting isn't always loud. Often it's quiet enough to make you doubt yourself. You begin to feel like the less confident you are about your reality, the more you need her to anchor it. And that's where she gains control. Your sense of self depends on her validation, which she offers in small, inconsistent doses. You live for those crumbs. Eventually, you start to believe she's the prize. You convince yourself that if you could figure out the right way to love her, she would return to being the person she was initially. But that person wasn't real. She was a mask, a lure. Now you're chasing a ghost, a version of her that only appears when you begin to pull away and reclaim your strength. And when that happens, she turns warm again, reeling you back in with sweetness just long enough to reset the cycle. The longer this continues, the more disoriented you become. Your friends notice your energy is off. Stop talking about her because you can't explain what's happening. You lose parts of yourself, your confidence, humor, and peace. And all of it feels tied to whether she approves of you that day. The cost of love becomes your stability. You must understand this. Love is not confusing. Genuine connection doesn't require you to question your reality or walk on eggshells. Healthy intimacy brings clarity, not chaos. The moment you feel like you're being tested without knowing the rules, you're no longer in a relationship. You're in a psychological game designed to keep you unbalanced and dependent. Freedom begins when you stop playing, when you name what's happening and choose your dignity over the illusion of love. The only way to break the cycle is to reclaim your sense of worth without needing her to confirm it. Real love doesn't feel like survival. It feels like peace. Number 5, isolation, control, and ownership. What begins as intense love and desire to be close can gradually shift into something far more suffocating. It often starts quietly. Perhaps she questions why you spend so much time with your friends or grows uncomfortable when you talk to your family. At first, it may seem like genuine affection or vulnerability, but soon those moments turn into patterns. She no longer wants to be part of your world. She wants to replace it. You begin to notice the shift. The people you used to talk to regularly fade into the background. She criticizes your closest confidants, finds flaws in your family, and subtly suggests they don't have your best interests at heart. She reframes your support system as a threat, not to you, but to her influence. And slowly you adjust to avoid conflict. You stop reaching out to old friends. You cancel plans. You tell yourself you're just choosing peace. But that peace comes at the cost of your freedom. This type of woman often cloaks control in emotional vulnerability. She becomes the center of gravity in your life. Her emotions begin to dictate your actions. She grows distant or angry if you're not paying attention to her. If you look too happy with others, she accuses you of betrayal. Emotional blackmail becomes part of the rhythm. You're rewarded when she's happy, punished with silence or guilt when she's not. It becomes your job to stabilize her mood, to walk lightly through each day, and to be careful not to trigger the next storm. And you've become the keeper of her emotional balance somewhere along the way without realizing it. Her happiness depends on you. Her sadness is your fault. Her anger is your responsibility. You're no longer just a man in a relationship. You're her emotional regulator, her problem solver, her therapist. And it's draining. You may tell yourself you're strong enough to handle it, that she's just been hurt before, or that she needs extra reassurance. But over time, the weight becomes unbearable. You feel trapped, not physically, but emotionally. Every decision feels like it requires approval. Every boundary you try to set gets pushed back. You stop being a man with autonomy and become a possession, expected to stay where she can reach you, where she feels safe and in control. Real love invites freedom. It allows space for both people to grow, to breathe, to maintain connections beyond the relationship. However, when one person uses love as a means of control, isolation is disguised as devotion, and jealousy masquerades as care. The relationship stops being safe. It becomes a cage where the bars are emotional obligations and guilt. If you constantly manage her reactions, walk on eggshells, and lose touch with the people who once grounded you, it's time to pause. Ask yourself if what you're in is love or control, because no matter how deeply someone says they care, if that care demands your silence, your isolation, and your emotional exhaustion, it is not care, it is possession. And no man should live as someone else's emotional hostage. Number 6. Why good people stay and why it's dangerous. You stay because you believe in love that endures, not the fleeting kind, but the kind that fights for something real. You're loyal, committed, and compassionate. You believe that with enough patience you can help her heal, that your love is strong enough to fix what's broken. But slowly, without realizing it, your most significant strengths, your empathy and sense of responsibility, become the tools to keep you stuck. She doesn't ask directly, but you feel it. She needs you, and that feeling makes you stay. Not because things are improving, but because you're convinced leaving would make you the villain. You tell yourself it's noble to stay, that real love means not walking away. But what you're doing is holding on to an illusion. You're not waiting for, you're staying for the version of yourself who doesn't quit. The truth is painful. She doesn't want healing, she wants control, and she uses your loyalty as leverage. Over time you feel drained, anxious, and unsure of yourself. Your friendships fade, your energy disappears, and your inner peace turns into constant tension. This isn't love, this is slow erosion. It takes courage to admit that what you're in isn't working. That staying isn't a strength. It's self-sacrifice. The love you thought could save her is costing you. And the moment you realize that, you begin to reclaim your power, because the person worth saving in this story has always been you. If you've ever found yourself entangled with a narcissistic woman, questioning how something that began with so much promise turned into a cycle of confusion, guilt, and emotional exhaustion, you're not alone. The truth is, narcissistic manipulation doesn't always come with loud demands or overt control. Sometimes it's quiet, calculated, and wrapped in what looks like love. Covert narcissistic women don't just seek partners. They seek emotional hosts, and the people they choose are often the strongest, most compassionate, and most loyal. If that sounds like you, understand this. Your empathy isn't a weakness, it's a strength, weaponized by someone who didn't deserve it. Walking away isn't about giving up, it's about protecting your peace, reclaiming your identity, and refusing to be anyone's emotional hostage. You are not responsible for fixing someone who continually breaks you. You are not obligated to stay in a relationship where love is used as leverage and your kindness is repaid with control. Whether you've already left, are trying to break free, or are just beginning to recognize the signs, know that healing is possible. Set boundaries. Reconnect with your support system. And most importantly, forgive yourself for staying too long. You stayed because you cared. Now it's time to care for yourself. If you've gone through this kind of relationship or are navigating your way out, I invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story could help someone else feel less alone. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more insights on relationships, emotional well-being, and reclaiming your power. See you in the next one.